They bound his hands, pressed him onto the deck as if he were a threat, but they did not notice the faded tattoo on his left shoulder. They did not know that just 1 hour later, 8 Navy warships would materialize from the mist, encircle those waters, and salute him in silence. No one knew his name. They only saw an 81-year-old man steering a ramshackle boat into forbidden seas. He did not resist. He did not explain. On the deck lay a wooden box, sealed for half a century. When the Navy's iron sails all came to a standstill, when the order to cease fire rang out, only a single question reverberated across the waves. Who is this man? And what in that tattoo compelled an entire fleet to bow? All right, dear viewers, prepare for a tale that will leave you speechless. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, only if you truly feel the story I'm sharing. And drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see you tuning in from every corner of the globe. Raymond Miller was 81 years old, yet to the townspeople of Sitka, he seemed like an unnameable fragment of their collective memory. Not because he spoke often or appeared frequently. On the contrary, he was so silent that he was almost invisible in daily life. But there was something about him that no one could forget, as if his absence for even a single day would leave an unfillable void in their monotonous rhythm. Each dawn, people saw him walking in silence, his pace unhurried yet steady, head slightly bowed, gaze never meeting theirs. Some had tried to greet him, only to give up when no reply came, not from rudeness, but because he did not belong. Raymond lived in a wooden cabin at town's edge. No visitors came, no family called, no radio or TV sounds drifted through his windows. Passers-by spoke of an indescribable stillness, as if the house cradled something too ancient to name. The nickname, Ghost Captain, began with one youngster and spread. At first a joke, then a habit, and finally a wary term of endearment. The elders said he'd been a naval officer. Some claimed he lost wife, child, shipmates in a sinking. No one knew if it were true, and no one dared ask. All tales about him were others' inventions, and he never confirmed or denied a word. Each year, on a single day, Raymond set to sea. Not earlier, not later, never varying. The date remained unknown until he appeared at the dock, donning a frayed coat, a wool cap, and worn canvas gloves. He boarded his boat slowly, yet resolutely, an act he'd performed dozens of times, and would until he could no longer. His vessel, named Seabound, was neither large nor beautiful, and certainly unfit for modern safety standards, but it floated, it sailed, and it was his sole trust. The hull was patched with dozens of mismatched planks, each board hand-cut, sanded, nailed, and painted by his time-worn hands, each nail a memory, each scar a story untold. People once mocked him, an old man fiddling with scraps of wood, nothing like a proper restoration, but over the years that laughter faded, replaced by silence when they saw him ascend the deck, hand resting on the helm as if greeting a kindred soul. No one asked where he went. They only knew he would return before sunset, not a minute late. During those hours, Seabound vanished into the ocean. No satellite image, no tracking, no one could follow him. Yet somehow, Raymond always came back, alone, silent, eyes unchanged, demeanor undisturbed, yet they sensed that he was not the same. Something in him had been stirred, then stowed away, folded tight within, too guarded to reveal. For the townspeople it became a ritual. On that fateful day, though unspoken, all eyes drifted to the sea more often. Some lingered longer at the harbor cafe. Others stood at the pier's end, pretending to wait for someone. But they shared one thought. Raymond was at sea again. And in that silence, respect was granted, needing neither thanks nor farewell. When he returned, everything resumed. No one asked, and he told nothing. But his presence after each voyage affirmed that something lay beyond human comprehension, something only he could face. And though they did not know what it was, they accepted it as part of their town, like the sea, like the wind, like time itself. Raymond Miller never needed anyone to understand him, yet through that steady silence, he compelled them all to listen, not with words but with an unmistakable presence. In the narrow hold of Seabound, amid weathered timbers and the scent of aged engine oil, there lay one object placed as if it were the axis of all remaining motion. A dark wooden box, its weight greater than its modest appearance suggested. Raymond Miller secured it with 3 iron hasps, not out of fear of loss, but to guard something deeper, tied to the silence he'd borne for decades. Inside that wooden shell lay a secret, not treasure, nor easily named relic of war, but a part of himself, a fragment of a past he dared not relive, yet could never allow himself to forget. The box was lined with faded, oiled cloth, its folds hardened by time. To any casual observer, it might seem a simple keepsake. But to Raymond, it was an artifact. The vessel for a final word that had never been heard again. Whenever his hand rested on the lid, his gaze lingered long, not from hesitation, but because he listened. Attuned to a frequency of silence, emanating from memories too distant to name, too vivid to erase. Beneath his worn naval coat, upon his left shoulder, was a tattoo faded by the years. A phoenix spreading its wings skyward, its body entwined around a broken arrow. Beneath it, a blurred inscription, Orion Division 112. Few still recalled that name. Some in military circles might have heard it fleetingly, then dutifully forgotten, for the unit, its campaign, and every related file had been withdrawn, declassified, and expunged from all official records in late 1972. No explanation, no announcement. Simply vanishing. Yet that tattoo remained, etched into his flesh, melding with wrinkles and scars. Whenever the wind lifted his coat, the phoenix emerged as a reminder. No longer sharp, no longer prominent, but stubbornly present, just like him. No one ever asked about that tattoo, perhaps deterred by the look in Raymond's eyes if it was noticed. Not cold nor angry, but like a silent whisper. Do not touch it. Do not summon it from its quiet. To him, Orion Division was more than a unit name. It was memory, voice, the faces grown dim, yet never gone. In his mind, each man remained, their bowed heads as orders were given, their silence in passing messages, their hands on shoulders before venturing into places with no return. And then the crackle of broken radio, those final fragmentary signals lost to the wind, unanswered. The box in Seabound's hold was more than a container. It was where he kept that unit's last word, a code sent in desperation, written by hand, safeguarded for 51 years, remembered by no one but him. No order required him to keep it. No authority forbade him to reveal it. But Raymond knew that if that box were opened at the wrong time, in the wrong way, or by the wrong person, all that his brothers had sacrificed to preserve would shatter into oblivion. He had once wanted to cast it into the sea. Some nights he sat alone, key in hand, box before him, and whispered, "Is this enough?" Yet his hand never rose, because the answer came before the question formed. Not yet. Still not. Others might think him haunted, claim he lived in the past, but Raymond did not live in memory. He lived with memory. He was the continuation his comrades could not complete. And until that final message was heard again, or laid to rest where it belonged, he was not permitted to let go. It was not a burden. It was a vow, one he accepted without signature, without witness, without drumbeat or banner. Only a tattoo on his shoulder, an unwavering gaze, and a box none must open. For some things, though faded, still live, and live in silence, like the ink on his skin, like the three-locked chest, like the name never spoken again. Orion Division, 112. On October 11th at 6 in the morning, Raymond Miller brought Seabound to the exact coordinates, 56 DG 55N 135 DG33. W. As he had for more than half a century, the engine cut, and an immediate, weighty silence enveloped him. Not the still water calm, but the silence of 51 deployments, of countless solitary voyages, of memories sealed so long he could no longer tell where they began. Every motion followed by instinct. Drop anchor. Check the transmitter. Haul in the antenna line. Lift the weathered radio lid. His gaunt, calloused fingers moved as though guided by a ritual performed hundreds of times, not because he feared forgetting, but because he forbade himself to forget. The radio trembled as he powered it on. Its first sound was not the crash of waves, but the hiss of static, like the last breath of a soul still unascended. Raymond lifted the mic to his lips. He drew a slow breath. His voice, hoarse, heavy, nearly vanished into the void around him. 112? Orion. Mayday. Still waiting. He said no more, made no frequency sweep, waited for no reply. He knew none would come. As it had for 50 years, that code went out one way. An echo cast into emptiness for ears no longer there to hear, but he transmitted nonetheless, for the point was never to receive an answer, but to refuse surrender. When done, he switched it off, folded the whip antenna, locked the radio back in its box. He did not regard it as machinery, but as part of himself, a bone-grown ancient, yet still sturdy enough to bear a memory heavier than its years. Then he rose, each movement measured as if under unseen scrutiny. No one watched, no cameras, no witnesses, but he remained solemn, as though fulfilling a vow before faces long gone. Raymond took the wooden box and stepped out of the cabin. His hands shook with age, yet held the chest as though clutching his own heart. He placed it on deck, beside the helm, exactly where it had rested for 51 years. Uncovered, unguarded, offered as a gift. No one certified the act, yet he performed it each year, same day, same hour, same place. Not a mechanical gesture, but a fidelity forgotten by all else. The box lay motionless, but in Raymond's mind it breathed, the breaths of those who sent it forth, who died for it, and who now lived on in the silence he sustained. No eyes on him, no witnesses. Yet his presence in that moment was an unspoken oath. Some things need no confirmation from others to be sacred, and he understood this better than anyone. Raymond expected no resolution, hoped for no voice on the line. What he did today, as every year, was not to revive the past, but to preserve it intact. As a gatekeeper for a sealed chapter of history, he chose not to depart, Not to shut the door, not to extinguish the flame, but simply to keep it alive with that small action, sending a signal unanswered, placing a box unopened, standing still while everyone else had long since gone. That was the rendezvous with no return, but Raymond always came back. For sometimes, the journey matters more than the destination. It's who keeps walking, even knowing no one awaits at the end. Dear viewers, take a moment to relax or grab a glass of water before we continue, because the story's twists aren't over yet. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always thrilling to see you tuning in from around the globe. Comment 1 if you're enjoying the story, so we can keep bringing you more great tales. A Coast Guard patrol boat suddenly cut across Seabound's path. Its unannounced arrival instantly ratcheted the tension. Deck lights blinked like scanning eyes. The hull edged closer to the weathered vessel. The air grew dense, every heartbeat aboard both ships pounding faster. Raymond stood motionless at the helm. He heard the thrust of the patrol boat, then the engine cut, an abrupt silence thick with hesitation. But he did not turn. Wind, waves, and decades of darkness had never made him flinch, nor would age-withered hands or lined face. A squad of officers leapt onto Seabound's deck. Startled by the old man's quiet, the senior tossed down a coil of rope. "You're under arrest for trespassing," he barked, voice rigid, void of empathy for the unfolding story. A rough pull sent Raymond sprawling on the narrow deck. He did not resist, thrash, or cry out. Both his actions and his silence conveyed that he understood exactly what he was doing, and why he would never answer. His naval coat slipped from his shoulder in the fall. The tattoo on his left shoulder caught the patrol boat's floodlights, the phoenix and its broken arrow, the blurred legend, Orion Division, 112. That moment of silence lasted just long enough for a young officer to see and pause. His eyes flickered with sudden recognition, but only for a second. The higher-up's shout quelled it. "Ignore it! This isn't our concern!" The order rang cold. No one loosened their grip. No one flinched. They moved by reflex, obeying the command. The men bound Raymond's wrists not to conceal the tattoo, but to erase the trace of an identity they could not grasp. They hauled him toward the central cabin. No questions, no apologies, not a shared glance for the old man being treated like a criminal. The distance between law enforcers and the man under law stretched until only the thudding of boots on the plastic deck remained. In that instant, the young officer's gaze swept Raymond once more. Surprise, fear, and perhaps regret tangled in that look, yet too late. The order stood, and the man left behind was nothing but an execution of protocol. Raymond remained silent. He offered no resistance, no verbal protest, no tears, only an unconscious nod, the gesture of someone who'd long known how to stand firm on the silence of pride. The Coast Guard pulled him upright, like lifting an inanimate object, his movements heavier than his years. His trembling hand rose to grip the rail, his back kept straight. Clearly, he had no intention of fighting back, even as they treated him a trespasser. It happened swiftly. The young officer's goggles reflected a flicker of doubt. No time to doff his cap. The superior, just steps away, did not avert his eyes from the tattoo, yet did nothing, did not stop his man, did not speak another word. The scene crackled with tension, an air where humanity had been left behind. But amid the machinery of orders and law, a faded tattoo, a relic of the past, was enough to ignite that young officer's eyes for a heartbeat, then snuff it out. The action continued. The patrol boat fell silent and departed, as if they'd completed their duty. One more old man bound on deck. One more battered boat held fast. One more secret concealed. Raymond, granted no response, stood still, mastering silence as he had been taught. He did not shout. He did not beg. He stood tall, wrists bound, gaze fixed on the void beyond the bow, a portrait not easily erased. An old sailor paused at the moment when the world's understanding was too small to grasp the truth he carried. It was the blind act of law's agents facing the inexplicable. Despite his silence, beyond their ken, fettered by rope, Raymond still stood unmoved, refusing to waver though no one truly looked at the man detained. Go on, he thought, not as defiance, but as a message to himself, a testament that though bound by orders, he remained unbowed, like the phoenix on his shoulder, awaiting rebirth, even with a broken arrow. Sometimes it takes only a single signal to awaken a colossal machine. When Raymond Miller stood bound on Seabound's deck, the ropes biting into his aged wrists as if to erase his very identity, none of the Coast Guard crew realized they had struck a blind spot in history, a forbidden zone uncharted on any map, a memory unrecorded in any file, and a vow untouchable by any but those who died for it. Just 14 minutes after the code, 1/12, Orion, Mayday, still waiting. Crackled from his weathered radio, the U.S. Navy's secret radar network flared to life. A rare code file, dubbed 112 Omega, buried deep in top-secret archives, resurfaced abruptly. Red warning lights pulsed in the underground command center at Kodiak. No consultation needed. No verification required. No questions asked. One rule encoded for decades dictated, if that signal activated, all must deploy. 8 warships, each bearing a special insignia, slipped their moorings in unison. Engines roared like the past refusing to lie dormant. Vessels without names, only designation numbers, as if they themselves were the moving orders. Each manned by specially selected sailors trained to execute what no one else was permitted to know. Time raced beyond expectation. 64 minutes after Raymond's arrest, the eastern horizon ignited, not with dawn, but with the gleam of steel, of engines, of those floating fortresses bearing the emblem of absolute silence. 8 sentries appeared at once. No warning sent, no call to drop anchor or radio hail, no explanation offered. They simply came, direct, uniform, encircling the tiny Seabound as though to guard an artifact not yet acknowledged. The Coast Guard recoiled. They did not comprehend what unfolded. No training manual imagined being blocked by the U.S. Navy itself. They froze. Some glanced to their superior for explanation, but he stood motionless, lips pressed tight, gaze wavering. A helicopter settled onto the command ship amidst the formation. From it emerged a man in navy blue, uniform devoid of rank, bearing only a strange emblem on his left breast. No one knew his name, but the certainty of his stride, each deliberate, unhurried step, compelled all to part before him as if by ancient instinct. He set foot on Seabound's deck. He looked at no one, asked nothing, simply halted before Raymond. His eyes met the tattoo on the old sailor's left shoulder, and then he straightened, solemn, raised his hand in salute. No word spoken, no title uttered, only that gesture. But within it lay an unwritten past, an acknowledgement requiring no proclamation. "Welcome back, Commander Miller," he said, voice low, not loud, yet each word carried to every ear aboard. Not one soul smiled, not one questioned. The Coast Guard stood statuesque. They did not understand, but they felt that what had just transpired surpassed any authority they had ever wielded. Some averted their gaze, others looked away entirely, as if to avoid witnessing something sacred they were not meant to comprehend. No one untied Raymond, yet when the Navy officer's hand rested on his shoulder, every rope became superfluous. Raymond spoke not. He did not bow, nor did he break into a grin. He merely closed his eyes for a heartbeat, as if to return for a moment to where he belonged. No applause needed, no fanfare, no champion required. He had come home, and this time they saw him at last. The true cost of a vow sometimes lies not in what it demanded at the outset, but in who has the steadfastness to keep it alive until the end, even when the whole world has forgotten it ever existed. Not every hero seeks a name in the records. After that day's events, the U.S. Navy sent an official letter offering the Medal of Honor to Raymond Miller. They wished to honor him as a loyal commander, guardian of a secret campaign never recorded in history books. He refused, not out of disdain for glory, but because he knew the spotlight could not illuminate faces that never returned. Instead of accepting the medal, he sent back a wooden box, the same box he had carried for more than half a lifetime. Inside lay the broadcast code he had transmitted, the combat log with handwritten commands from Orion's final days, and a small slip of paper, its handwriting shaky but clear, for those who never came home. No news outlet reported it, no grand ceremony was held. Everything was delivered to the Department of Defense under a special directive few could access. Yet from that year onward, on October 11th each year, 8 warships of the Northern Fleet quietly appeared, slipped into Sitka's waters, and formed a half-moon around the weathered wooden vessel named Seabound. No horns sounded, no signal flags flew, no warning was given, nor any orders. Only an old man standing alone at the helm, hands on the worn wheel as if touching a living relic. His gaze fixed not on the ships, but beyond the horizon, where he once sent his signal, once hoped for a reply, and now simply kept the memory from drifting away forever. Sitka's townsfolk, year after year, came to know that scene as a sacred ritual no one dared disrupt. No one asked questions, no one filmed it. They stood at a distance, hands pressed to chests, as one might silently bid farewell to a loved one never found. His shoulder tattoo had faded with time, the phoenix blurred, the broken arrow now little more than a pale line. Yet the respect shown to it, and to him, never waned. It deepened, for they understood true strength lies not in prominence, but in the ability to uphold one's oath amid silence and oblivion. Raymond never recounted the full story. He published no memoirs, granted no interviews. All he ever left were the actions repeated each year, 1 day, 1 coordinate, 1 man, and 8 warships. A curious young sailor once asked, "Why 8?" No one knew for sure, yet some said that was the final number of his team. 8 souls who were never named again. Or perhaps each ship now served as a floating tomb, forming a cemetery adrift in the sea. Raymond offered no explanation. Some things require no words, and some oaths are kept only through silence. One chapter had closed, but no one could say the story had ended. For sometimes, those who choose silence leave the greatest echo. If you ever glimpse an old man standing quietly at the wheel, surrounded by 8 nameless warships, remember, you are witnessing a page of history never rewritten, an oath without paperwork, without proclamation, without audience, surviving more than half a century by the steadfast heart of one man. Thank you for following this story to its end. If it touched your heart, please share it with your family and friends in the United States. Somewhere out there may be other Raymond Millers, silent, devoted, never asking for anything in return. We'd love to know, where are you watching from, and what time is it for you? If you'd like to hear more untold stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share. Each follower lights a small beacon that lets us continue telling the stories that have yet to be told.